Going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL. What's this? Live before lock, Showdown edition. That's right. Philadelphia Eagles, Houston Texans. Big spread in this game. No Brandon Cooks. Going to get interesting. One team, massive favorite. I think you know who it is. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D. On Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Hit your boy up. And while you're there, say hello to the Showdown shaman himself, Neil Orfield, here to guide you to through a spiritual adventure to Showdown success. What's up, brother?
You're alliterating again. Okay, I was wondering if you're trying to alliterate, and then you add all those S's. Yeah, I could tell you were trying.
I thought I had something good for a second.
Yeah,
guide you through a spiritual journey to Showdown success. That's not bad. That's not.
No, it wasn't bad at all. I thought you did a pretty good job. You missed the first S, like right when you were trying to do it right away. You missed one, but then you got back to it. I thought it worked out.
I know. Yeah, sometimes on the fly we screw things up. How you feeling though, man?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready for this game. I'm excited about it. Probably not as excited as you are to just watch the Eagles crush, but
I hate you. You're an asshole.
Just going right back to trying to jinx you. Yeah, I mean, why not? I'm not sure. I guess it worked yesterday. I didn't try to jinx.
Oh, it worked.
And then
you jinxed them into a combined no-hitter is what you.
So
funny,
guys,
for someone that doesn't follow baseball, you sure know the Phillies got no hit.
Yeah, I do know that. I mean, I follow baseball during most of the season. Just once the Twins are out of it, it's weird. I stopped paying attention really in the playoffs because the Twins never go anywhere in the playoffs. I also just wasn't playing DFS anymore. So yeah, and it's football season.
Chris Ostro said, Laffy, my guy sitting on cloud 9, Eagles and Phillies. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's not cloud 9. I texted a couple buddies today, Neil, and I said, it shows the way that I watch sports that I'm more excited for the Eagles tonight than the Phillies, because when I watch high pressure games, it's not enjoyment for me. It's torture. I don't actually enjoy it. I guess big plays I enjoy, but when I'm watching the Phillies and we're on defense and we've got whoever out there pitching, I'm just on the edge of my seat. I don't really enjoy low pressure game for the Eagles. It's odd, but I'm almost a masochist in that sense. Like I watch it. I don't know why I even watch sports that I cheer for and teams that I cheer for when really I'm just in pain half the time.
Yeah, so I think I'm on the same page with you there. Like watching the Timberwolves, I don't really care that much about like the Vikings or Twins, like to the extent that I do with the Timberwolves, where it's actually like painful for me in garbage time, where it's like I get pretty intense about it. And yeah, it's not really fully enjoyment late in the game for the Timberwolves like it is. With the Vikings, I can still really enjoy watching the Vikings, cheering for the Vikings at the end, because I'm not as invested in the Vikings as I am with the Timberwolves. But yeah, I'm the same way. If I'm watching a game and I really care about the outcome, I enjoy it a little bit less. And that goes for like when I've been to live finals where it's like a lot of money on the line. It has the same kind of feeling. It's like, I don't enjoy that. That's less fun. Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, very, very hypothetical here. Let's say the Timberwolves were in the finals. Very hypothetical. Let's say they were. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure you heard that the first time.
I did hear that. And I feel like you just reverse jinx the Timberwolves into the finals.
But let's say they were. You're watching every second of that game. You are thoroughly 100% invested, but you're probably not loving every second of it at all.
Yeah, not at all.
No.
I'm loving the wins. I'm loving after the fact if they have won.
Of course.
I'm loving
that.
And
you're on cloud 9 until the next game.
Yeah, no, same page.
Yeah. The after the fact is that endorphin rush, you know?
Yeah.
And you just feel great. And then you got to watch them again. Anyway, we're over 100 likes already. Woo. All right. It's Neil.
Right on.
It's Neil. You bring that energy, man.
They just love this conversation about how much we hate watching our favorite teams.
Yeah, pretty much. Get to watch one of them tonight. But thank you guys, all 31. Okay, now we're just cruising. We got to get to 500. We got an hour to do so. Get the 500 likes. If you haven't done so yet, take a single second and hit that thumbs up. Chat, I will leave it to you in chat to tell everyone exactly what they should do here. You know the 4 words. Let's do it. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. And anyway, let's get into this. We got quarterback. We'll go position by position here and have some fun with this one, Neil. Just the quickest question for you. There you go, Bradley, my man. Uh, th- from a strategy standpoint, it's a huge spread in this game. It's the biggest spread that we've seen all season long on Thursday Night Football, I believe. I can't think of another game that had a spread like this.
I think you're probably right. I can't say for sure, but yeah, I think 14 is probably the biggest we've seen.
I can't think of one, but it's besides the point. Will you have any like 5-1 Houston lineups today or 4-2 Houston lineups? I ask you this because I know you like to get contrarian. We know that that's not going to be popular. What's the craziest you're willing to get by going away from Philly and kind of overloading or skewing towards Houston, if at all?
So I can tell you, I've actually never looked at this on a Showdown slate. I don't really look that closely at individual stacks, but I just found the team stacks tab on Fantasy Crunch. And I can tell you that right now, what I have entered for this slate, I have one 5-man Houston stack. I know that a lot of sharks like to do that. Like that's a very sharky thing, to take the underdog, play the onslaught from the underdog is something that a lot of really great players do. It's not really the way that I build my lineups. I have 8 4-man Houston stack. So I really am heavy on the Eagles here, maybe to a fault to some extent. Maybe I should be going to more of these Houston guys, but most of my lineups are, heavier on Philly and then getting a little bit weirder with some of my Texans.
Okay. And yes, atone for your sins was that 4-letter sentence we were looking for. Many of you got it. Atone for your sins. Appease the YouTube overlords. Hit the thumbs up. That's how we do it. But yeah, that was the question I had for you, because it's a big one today. And we clearly don't want to just assume that this game goes a certain way, because that's the way everyone is assuming right now as 2 touchdown favorites. Let's get into quarterbacks first. We're looking at Jalen Hurts, Davis Mills. Once again, Jalen Hurts, look at his top play probability in our top plays tool. It's through the roof. I'm updating it right now just to make sure, or refreshing it right now just to make sure that I have the most recent, 27 minutes ago. But he has a 50% top play probability, which it's not only that it's high, but the next closest player is 12.5%.
Yeah. So we have him currently in the optimal lineup. Let's see, that's 91% of the time. 91% of the time we have Jalen Hurts in the optimal lineup. That's either in the flex or the utility. That's insane. You don't see that very often. We just saw it with Josh Allen. It was the same kind of thing. And I don't even know if Josh Allen ended up being in the optimal lineup for the Bills in that last game where he was like 95% owned.
Yeah. Against the Packers.
Yeah. I don't remember if he actually did end up because he didn't actually have a great game by, Josh Allen standards. So
I didn't play that slate. I forget what I was doing, but I did not play that slate. I don't think I was home or around, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, you're right. He wasn't great.
Somebody in chat could maybe tell us if they remember if Josh Allen was in that. That's a lot. I mean, 91% chance of being in the optimal lineup is a ton. I'm going to be under 91% Jalen Hurts, but like not by a lot.
All right.
And it might be a mistake. I mean, that's optimal. We actually have him a little bit under owned in the tools. We have him 83% owned or so, 84% owned, 91% optimal. So he's actually under owned in the tools at 84%. I'm going to be above. I think I'm going to be between that 84% and 91% number with my Jalen Hurts exposure.
Yeah. Well, God, he's utility ownership 64, captain 20%. Oof. I mean, I get it. The thing about Jalen Hurts, and we know this, when you have rushing quarterbacks, what a difference that makes. Amazingly, Lamar Jackson has had some games this season and even last season where he had a massive top play probability and didn't end up in the optimal. But still, look, the truth is with Jalen Hurts, 50% top play probability, Neil, it still means the 50% chance he isn't as well.
That isn't the top play. Yeah. I mean, that's,
right. No, I know. But I'm saying, yeah, of course. Yeah. Like utility optimal, 71%, captain optimal, 20%. You're over 90% that he's in the optimal. So
yeah. And he's 61.5% top play probability on FanDuel, which is to be expected. DraftKings is PPR, so it's more likely that somebody like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, one of these pass catchers can outscore him just because there's the bonus per reception, and then also easier to get to that 100-yard bonus receiving. So it's easier for players to outscore him, receivers generally to outscore him on DraftKings than it is on FanDuel. So even higher odds on FanDuel would be in the top play. But yeah, you're right. There's still a 50% chance that somebody else outscores him on DraftKings.
And I only say that because when you're talking about captain spot, I mean, we have 4 players that have optimal captain probability of double digits, 4 different players, and then you have Devonta Smith at 8%. Hurts is at 19.7% as the optimal captain, but Pierce is at 12. Brown is at 12. Goddard's almost at 12. There's a lot of different ways to get different. So I do like Jalen Hurts a lot across the board, obviously, but I really, with some of the crazy pricing, crazy high pricing on a lot of these Eagles, and of course you're going to have some cheap Texans to open things up. We'll talk about them, but Jalen Hurts in the utility or in the flex, I really like him there because he could still easily be the top scorer and not the optimal captain. Easily. Yeah.
With that price tag, I mean, he is the most expensive player on the slate by $600 over AJ Brown. And we've got some good players that are pretty cheap, like Dallas Goedert, only 6,600, looks great at that price tag. So yeah, it'd be very easy for Jalen Hurts to be optimal in the utility spot, which is, I mean, that's exactly what the tools say, 71% chance of being optimal in the utility spot. So you don't necessarily need to jam him into the captain spot, even if you expect him to be the highest scoring player. It's all relative to salary as well. What else you can do with your lineup.
Toma with the super chat. Any love for Tyron Johnson tonight? We'll definitely talk about him when we get to the wide receiver position. We'll spend plenty of time on some of these cheap options here. And by the way, guys, our tools, if you haven't checked them out, for the first 3 days, they're entirely free. Just use the link in the description. Jordan can throw it in the chat. If you wanted to avoid the super chat and you wanted to just take a look at that yourself, if you don't like it, you can bounce after 3 days. I think you will. The tools are awesome. All of our NFL tools entirely free for the first 3 days. If you want to use those links in chat or in the description, it'll get you ownership, top plays tool, top stacks tool. There's a great time to do it because you're getting it. You're going to get a good Sunday content too. Like I said, player projections, boom bust tool, all of that stuff. So first 3 days entirely free. And if you don't like it, you don't have to stick around. I think you will, but if you don't have to. Davis Mills. Neil, listen, man, I get why, you always have to consider a quarterback. Now, this is me. I have to try and be objective here and just see this for what it is. It's a game. Both teams are on short rest. Weird things can happen. We just saw crazy stuff happen the other week with Chicago. They start running more options with Fields. They start getting more design runs. The defense steps up. They end up crushing the New England Patriots. It's a little different for me though, because Hurts could go out and then Minshew could still run this offense because they have good pass catching options. They have a great run game. They have an offensive line that's elite. That's where I keep getting caught up. Like if it goes wrong for the Eagles, how does it go wrong? And if it goes wrong by Davis Mills just lighting the world up here tonight in Houston, how does he do it? Because you have no Brandon Cooks. He's officially inactive. That means that we come into this one looking at no Nico Collins either, looking at Chris Moore, Phillip Dorsett, and Tyron Johnson. Like those should be the top 3 receivers in the rotation today. And then a 3-man carousel at tight end.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really hard to envision Houston putting up like 35 points and Philly not, matching them. It's so hard to envision. We were all surprised by the Cleveland Bengals game, right? That game surprised everybody. So it is possible, but it'd be even more likely in this game. That game was, division rivals. It was at home for Houston, for Cleveland. I guess this game is also in Houston. So it is a home game for the Texans, but it's a lot harder for me to envision that happening here where just the Eagles can't move the ball and the Texans are scoring. It's a lot harder for me to envision here, especially because we don't have any, we had Jamar Chase out for the Bengals. I don't know if that was a big factor on Monday night, but it could have been, they didn't really know how to play without him. They're just used to having him there. So maybe that throws off the offense a little bit. We don't have that with the Eagles here. They have everybody that they want to have in this offense. So yeah, it is hard to envision just Houston coming out here and crushing the Eagles.
Jorge with the super chat. What's up, Jorge? Always appreciate you, man. Who will be your favorite captain for DraftKings single entry and your top value player for single entry as well? All right. Jorge, I expect better out of you with super chat etiquette, but I'm kidding. We love Jorge. But how would you answer that, Neil? Favorite captain for DraftKings single entry and top value player for single entry as well?
Probably top captain. I mean, Dallas Goedert looks really good. I'd probably go Dallas Goedert
Okay.
at 6,600. I guess it'd be 9,900 in the captain spot. We have him at 8.7% projected ownership in the captain spot, 11.5% optimal. So I think that is probably the best leverage we have in the captain spot specifically. So it would be probably Dallas Goedert for me. Do you see it differently?
No, I would say, and I know at least last I looked, he didn't have a positive leverage score, but I do think this could be one of those games where Miles Sanders absolutely goes nuts. They just allowed 300. The Houston Texans just allowed 314 rushing yards in a game.
Yeah. I mean, my only concern there is that they seems like when they get a big lead, they just don't keep feeding Sanders, right? I mean, like we've seen a couple times in the past year where they've had, 3 different running backs each score a touchdown. And so that's like, are they going to let Sanders just, is he going to be scoring the touchdowns? Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe he can just score one and get 120 yards and a few catches and that'll be enough. But
yeah, they have a lot of weapons. That's really what it comes down to. Like last week where Sanders only had 9 carries, he had a touchdown, but he only had 9 carries because AJ Brown had 3 touchdowns in the first half from 25 plus yards out. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do? It's just working, right? But short rest, I could definitely see Miles Sanders getting a lot of opportunities. Maybe they try and limit Jalen Hurts rushing a little bit with only 4 days rest, especially if they go up early. But I could also see Scott and Gainwell coming in this game if it gets out of control. So they're going to be fun to talk about once we get to running backs. But let's close out. And I saw some other super chats. I'll get to those. Let's close out quarterback. How are you approaching Davis Mills?
So I'm actually going to be above the field on Davis Mills in the captain spot and under the field on Davis Mills in the util spot from what it looks like right now. I think that he looks like a pretty solid play. We actually have it the opposite in the tools in terms of what you should do. We have him in the captain spot. We have him a little bit over owned, 4.6% projected ownership, 4% optimal. And then in the util spot, we actually have him under owned. We have him 31.5% projected ownership, 33.4% optimal. I ended up a little bit under that 31% number on Davis Mills. And it's not really something that I was intending to do. It was just the way, leaving some salary on the table and trying to get to a good amount of various players. I just ended up a little bit under that number and got a little bit over in the captain spot with Davis Mills. But according to our tools, he's actually better in the util spot. Is probably the better if you are hand building and you can just make the lineups exactly as you want. You're probably better off using Davis Mills in the util.
All right, let's talk running backs here. This is where it gets really fun because the Philadelphia Eagles have Miles Sanders. They have Boston Scott if he gets involved. Let's be very clear about this, though. In a regular week, if the game is close, Miles Sanders is getting the lion's share of touches. You can go back and look. It's just facts, right? Over 75% of running back carries this year. Of course, Jalen Hurts is going to get some too. But Kenny Gainwell, clear change of pace back. Once in a while, Boston Scott gets involved. If the game gets out of hand, though, and Sam Pierce, I think having Sanders and Scott is totally fine in a game where there's a 14-point spread, especially a team that's likes to run the football. Hurts has had some nice games, really, really nice games throwing. But if you go back and look, his passing volume is still pretty low. They've just been accurate, deep balls, moving the ball methodically downfield easily, and it results in big games. But he's not throwing that much. So yeah, Neil. I mean, Sanders, I have no problem going 2 Eagles running backs, and I like Dameon Pierce too. I mean, he's the one guy. He's seen a lot of targets recently. They're down Brandon Cooks. The only chance really that they have, it feels like, against an Eagles team that's 22nd in run defense DVOA, second in pass defense DVOA, early on would be on the ground with Pierce.
Yeah. So I mean, Dameon Pierce looks pretty great tonight. I guess I'll start with Miles Sanders because we talked about him before, and I was saying that I do have concerns about him in the captain spot. I'm actually over the field on Miles Sanders in the captain spot, which is something that I was doing.
Yeah.
I do think that it is a great spot for Miles Sanders. So I am with you. I was voicing my concern. I should have maybe ended with that and started with, yes, I agree with you. Miles Sanders does look
well. I agree with you too, though, just in the sense of like it can always go sideways with a Philly running back for sure.
Right. Yeah. So we both like Miles Sanders quite a bit. I'm a little bit over the field in the captain spot. I'm actually right about even with Miles Sanders in the flex spot as well. I'm right at 31%, which is the field is at 32%. So right with the field on Miles Sanders in the util spot, and then over the field in the captain spot. Dameon Pierce. So Dameon Pierce is $1,800 cheaper than Miles Sanders and actually projects better for us. I cut back his projection a bit because I wanted to get to more of Miles Sanders, and I didn't want to get to like 70%, whatever I was getting of Dameon Pierce. That seems like a stretch to me. He is a little bit involved in the passing game, but he has like 20 targets on the year, something like that. Or maybe I think he has like 24 targets on the year, Dameon Pierce. So he's involved, but it's not like he's, somebody who's getting 6 targets a game.
To be fair though, 20 of those targets have come over the last 4 weeks.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I did miss that.
6-5, 4 and 5 over the last 4 weeks. And Brandon Cooks is out.
And have we seen the inverse for Rex Burkhead? Have his targets gone down at all? Have you noticed?
Yeah. So Rex Burkhead 1, 6, 3, and 5, but last week, only 1. So okay. I think it's trend. I was hoping it would trend in that direction just because Pierce is young. And Lovie Smith wants to get him the football as much as he can.
Yeah.
But if you and I were talking about this last month, we would not be talking about Dameon Pierce pass catching upside. But I do think in full PPR, you could get 4 or 5 receptions tonight, especially if they're playing from behind.
Yeah, no, that is actually interesting. I didn't realize that he had seen that uptick recently. I just saw the 20 receptions or whatever on the year, and I was like, all right, he's okay. You can pair him with Mills a little bit, but not a real target. Whereas Rex Burkhead has been targeted like 31 times on the year, or maybe has 31 receptions. I should look that up, but he's has been more involved in the passing game than Dameon Pierce. But I like Dameon Pierce quite a lot. I'm actually just my goal was to not take a real stand on Dameon Pierce because I don't really have a strong opinion. And I'm right about with the field. I'm at 43% in the util spot, 10% in the captain spot with Dameon Pierce. I think that's right about where I would like to be with him. Yeah, he's a solid play, and you do need to play somebody from the Texans. Dameon Pierce seems like the surest thing to have a big game for the Texans, to score a touchdown, to have 15 to 20 fantasy points and be the guy you need for the Texans. So I do like Dameon Pierce quite a bit. I decided to spread it out a little bit with some of the other the pass catching options. These cheap guys are going to be spread out throughout my lineups as well. But yeah, Dameon Pierce, certainly a great play. And yeah, I do have interest in both of these backup running backs for the Eagles, just because we have seen them involved when the game script is right. And there is a 14-point spread in this game. So it seems more likely than usual that Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott will be used more in the second half, or maybe throughout. I mean, this could be a game where the Eagles just don't really throw the ball. They don't need to risk throwing the ball, do they? They can rush it with Hurts. They can rush it with these running backs. It might not be a game where they actually use the wide receivers as much as we're used to. So it could be just, let's give it to all of these running backs. It could be right from the get-go, to be honest. I mean, I think we're on the same page that Miles Sanders is likely to get the lion's share in the first half, but I could see them just, Miles Sanders rushes a few times. He gets tired out. They just throw in Kenneth Gainwell or Boston Scott. Would not be a surprise to me at all. So I like both of these guys. I'm above the field. I'm actually at 21% Kenneth Gainwell right now in the util spot. I'm a little bit above the field on Boston Scott as well. I think they both make sense in a game where the Eagles could be blowing out the Texans. And even if they don't, they might just not feel like they need to risk throwing the ball, and they might just be running the ball a lot from the get-go. So I like these Eagles running backs quite a bit. I'm a little bit above the field on Rex Burkhead, just as the pass catching Texans back, the guy who gets more of the pass catching work. I think it's possible that the Texans don't score a touchdown in this game, and Rex Burkhead at 4,600, maybe they can't get it to the receivers as much as they'd like, but maybe 5 or 6 dump offs to Rex Burkhead. You get, a point for each of those, and he's only 4,600. So I think that he is about as likely as any of the cheaper receivers for the Texans to have a big game. So I'm a little bit above the field on Rex Burkhead as well. And then, I mixed in a little bit of Daria Gumbawale and Troy Hairston, but I have a total of 3.5% of those guys. So not taking a strong stand there.
Just to follow up on what you were saying, the Eagles will take some shots. I don't have any doubt about that, right? You're still going to take some shots. You're not going to not throw at all. But the Houston Texans, their secondary has been league average. I mean, Derek Stingley's a top 3 overall pick. Steven Nelson's been pretty good. They haven't been bad back there. I mean, listen, the Eagles are still markedly better offensively through the air than this team is at defending it. But no, it wouldn't shock me if Philly ran 40 times in this game. It actually would not shock me. The Houston Texans are allowing 5.6 yards per attempt. I'm not saying Sanders is Derrick Henry, but this offensive line can make guys look pretty damn good. All in all, you're talking about a team that's coughing up 186 rushing yards per game. That's 30 more than the next closest team in the league this season. And they've had a bye week and still they've allowed more rushing yards than any other team by like 70. So it's just really bad. And I don't think they have any way to slow them down. So yeah, here's a question. Would you play Scott Gainwell would you play like a Scott Gainwell lineup without Sanders?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be mixing and matching these guys. And I totally don't mind having multiple running backs from the same team, even if they are both of these backup running backs. Maybe the Eagles come out and throw the ball early on, get a big lead and feel like they don't need to be using Miles Sanders so much in the second half. I think that there's plenty of ways and obviously there's the, God forbid Miles Sanders gets hurt in the first quarter, then you'd love to have those backup running backs at their cheap price tags in one lineup. So for sure, I would allow that in the lineup.
Damn, Kyrie just got suspended by the Nets.
How long?
I didn't see. Teams in disarray.
Yeah, that's man, what a mess. What a mess. And then of course they hire the coach from the Celtics, but we're not going to get into that right now.
I think it was can I be honest with you? I think it was a pretty smart move. And I'll tell you why. Set your morals, set the morals aside, set ethics aside, right?
Yep.
You know as well as I do that in the sports fan, among sports fans, they all have selective amnesia. If something starts going well, like Udoka doing terribly they'd never let him forget. They start winning games, everyone's going to forget about it. The national media is going to forget about it. Nothing bothers me more, and I'm not talking about you, but like sanctimonious fantasy analysts that when a player does something bad, they go, don't ask me about that player. And then someone asks them and they shame that person for asking them to do their job and help them out with a question. But then guess what? It all blows over. A month later, guess who's talking about Kareem Hunt again like it never happened? At least stand up for yourself. Lose your job. That's my thing. Like we all forget about it. So I always take the position of they're going to do what they're going to do because I don't want to be caught 6 months down the road being like, hey, this guy's great when I was shitting on him 6 months ago. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I don't have a strong take on that situation. I don't know the details and whatnot. But Kyrie's just an idiot. I don't know what to say there. Despite the one time I met him in the hot tub and he let me and my wife go into the hot tub and told us, I'll be out in a minute. I really appreciated that from Kyrie, but more recent stuff, not so great. All right, back to the running backs.
You didn't run into him in the steam room, right?
I did not. I ran into him. We were looking for a hot tub by the pool in Phoenix, and he was in the hot tub by himself. And I got to her and I saw there's Kyrie, and I just kind of like stared at him for a second. I was like, really, like it's the only time in my life I've been totally speechless seeing somebody because I was like, what the heck? Like I didn't know that the Nets were even in town. Ran into Kyrie, and he said, give me a minute, I'll be right out. So let me and my wife get into the hot tub. The one more thing that I want to say about these
hold on.
backs,
by the way, Jordan was telling us in the steam room. No way. No,
absolutely not.
Jordan was telling us how he's sick, so he went into the steam room, and it's just a bunch of old dudes sitting there with the hogs hanging. So that's why. Don't worry. That's
he just wanted to know if that's No anyway, such luck. No such luck for us. All right. These running backs, really like them on DraftKings, like them even more on FanDuel. I've talked about it. Sometimes these guys who are clearly too expensive for their likely outcome, like Kenneth Gainwell is $8,000 on FanDuel, Boston Scott $7,500. They're even better plays, despite the price being higher and looking like worse plays. They're better plays because it's not full PPR, and it's more likely that just one single touchdown, one play can pay off that price tag. So I keep taking shots on these guys, and it works out every so often. These guys can be great plays. So I would like to be above the field on both Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. Both are getting under 5% ownership on FanDuel, and I think both are very live to score a touchdown. So I really like those guys even more so on FanDuel than DraftKings.
Okay. Anything else for running back?
No, I think we've said
Yeah, I think
I
think we covered everything. That's what we do here. We leave no stone unturned, Neil.
That's right.
All right, wide receiver. Let's get to it. Before we do, though, shout out to our sponsor, No House Advantage. Jordan, can I get an overlay report on No House Advantage when you get a second? Today it was like 180 out of 1,600 or something insane. This just overlaying like crazy. I know a lot of you guys have taken advantage of that. Neil, you do all the time when it comes to overlay on No House Advantage.
It's great. Yeah, you got to take advantage when you can. Overlay is a hard thing to find. No House Advantage is purposely giving us overlay, so it's a great place to make some money.
Take advantage of it, and you get up to $50 first match deposit bonus when you use the link in the description or the one that Jordan can throw in the chat. Like I said, the real thing is the overlay that you're getting. This site, look, they're a growing site. They're building. They're trying to get people over there. And in order to do so, they're going to incentivize people with some big prize pools. And all you're doing is you're building lineups. There's no salary cap, nothing like that, right? There's no salary cap or anything. You're just taking props, the over or the under, and you're building lineups with them. And you're playing against everyone else as you would on, say, DraftKings, FanDuel, wherever. The ones you like the most go at the top. They get the most points. The ones you're least confident in go at the bottom, get the fewest points. They have a multi-lineup generator at No House Advantage. We have over at Stokastic free lineup generator and free player projections, free player prop projections, all built specifically for No House Advantage. Also, their props are static. They don't change. So you can find a significant edge there. A lot of ways to win, a lot of different sports over there as well. Or if you want, you can play against the house. And if you hit all of your bets, you 20X. So that's pretty cool. Someone said to me today in chat, they're like, why don't you talk about that? You're right. I should, because apparently that's one of the best features that they have over there. Test your skills against the house, 20X your entry if you hit all your picks. Check it out. Use the link, get the $50 first match deposit bonus, use all of our free tools over there, and take advantage of the massive overlay at No House Advantage. All right. Wide receivers. We got to start with, actually, Neil, you want to hit a super chat or two real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Douglas Bowman. Thank you, Douglas. Should we just play all Eagles running backs with Hurts and no wide receivers today? That's an interesting question. He said it's for single entry, though, DraftKings. Does that change your opinion? But it's an interesting question that might make things different. What do you think?
I think that is plausible. So, I mean, we just talked about that as being a potential game script that the Eagles will just run the ball because they have really no need to risk throwing the ball in this game. But it's certainly risky. Like, I don't think that's the most likely outcome, that they're just running the ball from the get-go and not even trying to throw it to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. They have such great receiving options. I think it's within the range of outcomes. So it is, you could try that out. Just know that it's probably not what's going to happen. It is certainly an outcome that wouldn't shock me, but it's maybe a 5% likelihood that they just try to run the ball and, only throw the ball, 15 times this game. I don't know what the, how often does Jalen Hurts actually throw the ball in an average game? I could see him throwing less than average in this game. So I think that could work out, but certainly not the likeliest outcome.
Eagles pass play percentage this year is, let's see, it is 47%, third lowest in the league.
Yeah. So I'm seeing he's, it looks like he throws it around 30 times per game in general. It wouldn't shock me if Jalen Hurts only throws the ball, 15, 20 times this game. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm saying that is within the range of outcomes. I think that it's possible the Eagles just see this game and say, we don't need to risk throwing the ball. We can just run all over the team. We've got a great offensive line. They've got a terrible run defense. Throwing tends to be more risky. I mean, in general, it's a better approach to throw the ball, but in a game where you really don't need to, I could see them just rushing it more than usual here.
No question. All right. Hey, and by the way, I agree with you. Who was that? Someone said that the Eagles don't have Henry. Thomas said Eagles ain't got Henry. I don't think Texans will make it that easy tonight. I'm not saying they do, but Sanders is still 8th in the league in rushing yards this year. He hasn't been bad. He's still 8th in the league. So there's that. But, and that's on somewhat limited volume in certain games. But let's talk about receivers here. You have AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. I mean, AJ Brown's the clear alpha in this offense, but we've seen Devonta Smith have those games. I do wonder how much a difference it would make in a somewhat chalky lineup if you took AJ Brown out, put in Devonta Smith, and now you're leaving like 3K or whatever it is on the table.
Yeah, you certainly can do that. We've seen the Devonta Smith have those big games. He always has the upside for just a huge touchdown. I don't hate doing that. I mean, whenever you're thinking about leaving salary on the table, you need to be thinking about your entire lineup, because I think that sometimes people want to do like, and this is an example of that, but I think this is an example where that certainly could work. But I'm just saying generally, sometimes people will think, well, we've got this $10,000 receiver in the lineup. This is a great lineup. I'm just going to sub him out for the $2,000 receiver. And I think that $2,000 receiver is going to outscore him 10% of the time. There are games where that's going to happen. The problem with that is that $8,000 that you're saving can be used in any lineup spot. So, in general, you don't want to be leaving on some slates. You don't want to be leaving $8,000 on the table. You need to be thinking about the entire lineup. Look at every single spot. Is there somebody, within that $8,000 who's, very likely going to outscore them? And then it's also like, what's the likelihood at each individual spot that somebody within $8,000 is going to outscore them? So when you get to that extent, and I'm just making a more general point, this isn't in response to what you were saying, because
I got you.
That's viable tonight. But I think that's something that people need to keep in mind, that when you are leaving salary on the table, and I'm somebody who tends to leave a lot of salary on the table, you need to leave it within the reason. You need to be thinking about where could I upgrade somewhere else in the lineup, and what is likely that in each of these spots, the guy that I have in there is going to outscore the player within that salary that I've left on the table above them.
For sure. Yeah, like Devonta Smith's at least a guy that has a monster game this year and a couple big games as well. So we'll see. I mean, at this point, I'm just trying to think of what are ways to get different without being stupid, because AJ Brown, clearly a fantastic play. We know he's great. We also know that AJ Brown has had some games this season that have been just okay, and games that, like, he's had two real big games. Of course, on a showdown slate, you might not need a huge game. Like, you don't need last week's game or with a week one game, but he's had a couple games where he's just been okay. And those are games where they took a big lead and he didn't need to do all that much. Outside of the one against Arizona, they've shut down wide receivers quite well. How do we look at the wide receivers here? You're talking AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, and then you get into guys like Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal coming off his first touchdown last week. They do have a couple guys that might, like Quez could get a target or two, and one of them's a 50-yard touchdown.
Yeah, for sure. And I like all of these guys to varying extents. Starting with AJ Brown, looks like we have him a little bit of, very neutral in the captain's spot, 12.5% projected ownership, 12.1% optimal. That seems about right to me. In the util spot, we have him a little bit under owned, 41% ownership, 44% optimal. He's obviously a great play. AJ Brown is a guy who we just saw score 3 touchdowns in a game. What else can you say? He's a very solid play at this ownership. 40% ownership seems about right to me, and that's what the tools say as well. 50% overall, 55% projected ownership, 55% optimal, approximately overall for AJ Brown seems about right. I think I'm going to be a little bit underweight to the field on AJ Brown, just because I do think they might be running the ball a little bit more in this game, and he is so expensive. And I'm leaving salary on the table, so I'm getting to more of Jalen Hurts. It's hard to play both of these guys without making a lot of concessions when you're leaving salary on the table. So I'm getting to more Jalen Hurts than AJ Brown, but certainly a solid play at around 55% owned. Devonta Smith looks even better from a leverage standpoint, 8% projected ownership at the captain spot, 8.2% optimal, so pretty neutral there. But then in the util spot, 34.5% projected ownership, 38.7% optimal. He's only 8,200, much easier to get to Devonta Smith if you do want to leave some salary on the table. So I like Devonta Smith quite a bit. There's not much you need to say about these guys. These are the two best receivers on the Eagles. They're clearly going to have their opportunities if the Eagles are throwing the ball. I like them quite a bit. In game scripts where you're expecting Jalen Hurts to throw the ball, these are the guys who are likeliest to score fantasy points. And then the more secondary, tertiary guys among these wide receivers, Quez Watkins, we've got a little bit of positive leverage. He actually looks better for us in the captain spot than the util spot. We have 0.9% projected ownership in the captain spot, 1.9% optimal in the captain spot, and then 11% projected ownership in the util spot, 10.5% optimal. Quez Watkins looks fine. I'm actually taking a bigger stand on Zach Pascal, even though we have negative leverage on him. I think Zach Pascal is a little bit more game proof. Like if the Eagles do get up by 3 touchdowns, I think that benefits Zach Pascal. I think he's still playing in the fourth quarter. Of course, they're probably more likely to be running the ball, but maybe they get Gardner Minshew in there, throw into the backup wide receivers. So I do have some interest in Zach Pascal. I'm going a little bit above the field. We have projected for 5.2% ownership in the util spot, 0% in the captain spot. I'm actually taking a little bit of a stand there and going above the field on Zach Pascal. Not like a ton. I'm not trying to jam in 30% Zach Pascal. I'm just trying to go a little bit above that 5% number on Pascal.
I like it. Hey, we have 331 likes, 17 minutes to go. And we need 168 to 500. Is it doable, Neil? 2,000 people watching?
Yeah, without Matt Savoca here holding us back with his grumpiness, I think we can certainly get there.
I think it's very much doable that we could get this. Atone for your sins, friends. Takes a single second. That's all. Just a click. That one little click. And if you hate it, hit the thumbs down button twice. No worse for wear. I get it. And plus, subscribe to the channel. If you don't like us after all this, we will gladly refund your misery. Very free. Just never see us again. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I have faith in you guys. All right. So talk to me about the Houston side of this one. How do you figure this out with Tyron Johnson and Moore and Dorsett and Brevin Jordan and Howard and I mean, my God, this is ugly.
Yeah, so I think we're expecting Chris Moore to be the wide receiver 1. I guess I can pull up my article and tell you the numbers that we have on him. But Chris Moore has led the team outside of Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. Chris Moore is leading the active Texans receivers in both routes run with 147 and targets, just 15 targets on the year, but that is leading the active Texans wide receivers. So we are expecting Chris Moore to be the wide receiver 1 for the Texans. Philip Dorsett likely is going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Texans. He played 83% of snaps last week, and I would expect that he sees an increase in targets with Brandon Cooks now joining Nico Collins on the sideline. He is 4,000. We actually have Tyrone Johnson projecting really well for 200. He played just 5 offensive snaps in week 8. That was his first game with the team. He played up 5 offensive snaps. I think we're expecting him. I know that we're expecting, based on the projection, we're expecting Tyrone Johnson to come in and have a bigger role here, maybe get a few more targets. So he is certainly in play. He projects really well for $200. I don't want to be getting to, a ton of Tyrone, like 50% Tyrone Johnson, like I might have gotten naturally. I actually don't remember what I was getting. Maybe I wasn't anyway, but he projects really well for $200. He's certainly in play among those guys. And then we also had a call up of Jalen Camp is going to be active with the Texans here today. Unclear. He was called up to the active roster. Unclear what his role will be, if any, if he's going to be on the field. But he's just one more receiver that we need to worry about potentially taking some snaps from these guys. I'm playing a little bit of Jalen Camp. I don't think that we really have him. We have him projected for 3.8% ownership, 0.2% optimal. So we are not expecting Jalen Camp to have a big role here, but I'm playing right with the field, a little bit under 4% Jalen Camp currently. I think that there is a world in which he takes on a bigger role than we're expecting, just because really hard to know what to make of this Texans receiving core. But Tyrone Johnson looks phenomenal. 16% projected ownership in the util spot, 19% optimal, 1.7% projected ownership in the captain spot, 2.8% optimal. So he looks really good with that $200 salary. You can basically do whatever else you want in your lineup if you play Tyrone Johnson in the captain spot. So he actually looks in both the captain spot and the util spot looks pretty great. Chris Moore looks a little bit underowned, 4.6% projected ownership in the captain spot, 6.2% optimal, 24% ownership in the util spot, 28% optimal. So we have positive leverage in both spots with Chris Moore as well. And then Philip Dorsett, we actually have a little bit of negative leverage on Philip Dorsett, 3.2% to 3% in the captain spot, 18% to 17% in the util spot. So slight negative leverage, but fairly neutral. Yeah, it's hard to know what to make of these guys. It's really hard to get a read on any of them because we haven't seen this situation yet, but all signs point to Chris Moore being the wide receiver 1. And then I think after that, it's a little bit more convoluted.
For all we know, Tyron Johnson could be in the optimal with 3 for 40 today.
Yeah, exactly. He really could. That's 7 fantasy points.
That's how I see it. Okay. So 2 things here. 1, appreciate you guys. We're 450. We got 50 more. Yeah, this is easy. Two, we got tight ends, defense, kickers to go. This is a little bit less time consuming. So we're going to get you guys all of this done before, so you have time to make sure that you can finish those lineups out. I'm doing the same thing as we speak. But if you want 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, you heard that right, Neil. Jordan, you too. I know you're feeling under the weather, but your ears should perk up at that. 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you haven't signed up at BetMGM yet, and it's legal in your state. Here is your chance. I already talked to everybody. I know we're going down to 1 month soon. 2 free months. You thought the 10 for 200 was good? For you, those of you DFS players, maybe you're saying $120 a month for Stokastic Plus Platinum is a lot. Well, here's 2 months for $10. Use the link in the description. Use the link in chat. Follow the directions. Literally all you're doing is clicking on the link, following the directions. And when you deposit $10 and put that or more and put that $10 on any game, can be NFL, can be what you could do it right now. Bet on this game tonight. Any bet doesn't need to be a money line. Any bet. When that bet settles, win or lose, BetMGM will email you and you're getting 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Literally the best deal you're ever going to get. I mean, it is 2 free months, the $240 value just for signing up BetMGM, putting a $10, you got to use the link, putting it, otherwise they won't know how to find you, putting a $10 bet on anything, whatever you want. I don't care if it's Russian table tennis, for all I care. You're in 2 free months, everything on the site. And if you want to get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on on top of that, you can do that too. But all of the other tools entirely free for 2 months. Check it out. BetMGM. I mean, what a sick deal, Neil.
That's a great deal.
It's a damn right. It's a good deal. All right. Tight ends. I'll make this quick with Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert's a great play today. I love this price point. He's one of the best yards after the catch guy in the league. We know that he gets some opportunities in the red zone as well. Big fan of Dallas Goedert. If you want to touch on him, feel free to. Have no problem with you wanting to go with us going through everything. But he's got 6+ targets in 4 straight games, 5 of his last 6. We know that he can put up numbers, and I think you're going to start seeing some positive regression as far as touchdowns go. The Houston side is far murkier. You get into the weeds here, and you're talking about guys that could all end up with 2 targets each and could split snaps 3 ways. Like, it's real ugly there, but some of them are pretty cheap.
Yeah, so I actually have a clear favorite among the Texans tight ends, and maybe I'm taking too big of a stand, but Brevin Jordan just looks the best to me. He's 1,000 on DraftKings, Jordan Akins 800, OJ Howard 1,600. Brevin Jordan leads the tight ends in both routes run and targets so far this year, and he's missed 3 games. So despite missing 3 games, he leads the tight ends in both routes run and targets. He played 56% of snaps last week. Howard played 50%. Akins played 26%. So all signs to me point to Brevin Jordan being the best play of the 3, you know, with if you don't factor in ownership, and he's not getting a ton of ownership. So to me, it is Brevin Jordan is my number 1, followed by probably OJ Howard and then Jordan Akins. I'm making it sound like I have too strong of a take here, but I do prefer them. Brevin Jordan, then probably OJ Howard, then Jordan Akins.
All right. Douglas asked, last one, Sanders Gainwell or Sanders Scott. I personally, I don't think it matters, Neil, but the fact that Gainwell's so much more expensive than Scott is kind of not great. But I suppose he'll also be very, very, very minimally owned given his price point.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good call. It's just easier to play. It's easier for those two to hit together than Gainwell with Miles Sanders because of the price tag. So I think that's probably the right call. I'd rather go to Boston Scott there.
Okay. Oh God, tight end is ugly. Anything else you want to hit on with tight end?
No, I'm with you with Dallas Goedert. We talked about it. You know, when somebody asked my optimal, my favorite captain for a single entry, I gave Dallas Goedert as my answer. He just looks great in the tools. So I'm right with you there. And yeah, I mean, we went over the Texans tight ends. Oh, and I guess you can play, maybe you know more about this guy than I do. Jack Stoll. I think he's had 3 targets on the year. Maybe you could play him as he could get a 1-yard, touchdown pass. I don't know. What do you think of Jack Stoll?
Yeah. He's out there a decent amount, and they run a decent amount of 12 personnel, but at the same time, he's out there blocking, just consistently blocking. That's what he does. He has a target in 2 straight games. So, you could play for that. He's dirt cheap. I would probably, like, if we're looking at this team, just try and find a way to get to, and it's not hard because you have Tyron Johnson and so many other cheap guys. Try and find a way, and cheap running backs for the Eagles to get to like Quez Watkins. Honestly, I know the price is a little bit different. Jack Stahl's dirt cheap. I think he's the bare minimum, but Quez Watkins has that upside even on 1 or 2 targets. But I don't know. Does Jack Stahl have 1 reception for 10 yards and a touchdown? I assume it's possible. Anything's possible.
Right. Yeah, he's not somebody I'm taking a big stand on. It was, as I was looking for low owned plays, I thought, yeah, I like him better than Grant Calcaterra or whatever. He seems a little bit more likely than projects a little bit better, but certainly not. We've got enough value on this site that we don't necessarily need to go there.
Oh, good. Philly's down 1-0 already. This should end well. This is good stuff. All right. Oh, defense and kicker. Eagles are $7,000, and that's not a captain either. They're super expensive. But you just said you could see this playing out where Houston might not score. Of course, you're not saying you are projecting them not to score.
Right.
But you could see this being one of those games where it's a rout, and the spread would suggest that's the case. The price point here would suggest that's the case. Eagles not very popular for the exact reason that they're, that they are very much expensive. Probably the most expensive defense we've seen on a showdown slate all year.
Yeah, and it wouldn't totally shock me to see them go over-owned. Like we're not expecting a ton of ownership, but we have seen teams. I think that it's a little bit less likely than we have seen with like the Patriots when they were extremely expensive and they got super high owned. I think it's a little bit less likely here just because we have so many great value options that it doesn't feel as necessary, but maybe they surprise us. The ownership surprises us a little bit. We have looks like 6 interceptions so far this year for Davis Mills. That looks good for the Eagles defense. Like to see that. What do we have in terms of fumbles? Looks like we've got a handful. We got 4 fumbles so far this year for Davis Mills too. So, he is a little bit turnover prone. That looks good for the Eagles. Yeah, I don't know. The 7,000 price tag is going to be hard to pay off. But if the Texans cannot move the ball, if they don't score at all, that's 10 free points for the Eagles defense. If they're probably going to score at some point, right? Which, if they score 3 points, that's still 7 free points for the Eagles. I think there's ways for the Eagles to get there. Obviously, what you really want if you're playing the defense, especially at 7,000, is a touchdown. You want a pick 6 or you want a fumble recovery for a touchdown. But I think there are ways to get there, but this isn't a slate where I'm going to be playing a ton of the Eagles. I'm going to have the Eagles defense. I'm going to have under the field on the Eagles defense. I'm also not full fading them. I think a lot of sharp players probably will full fade the Eagles defense just because of that price tag, but I'm not going that far, but I'm going to be a little bit under the field. Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense because they could it's definitely possible that the Eagles have a huge game. But at 7K, you're going to need it. Any interest on the Eagles in the captain spot?
They look even worse for us in the captain spot, just looking at our tools. Actually, I should see if I actually got to any, but I know that they have negative leverage for us. We have the Eagles at 4% projected ownership in the captain spot, 1% optimal. So negative leverage for the Eagles in the captain spot. Hard for me to really love them there. Now I'm curious if I got to any. I didn't really try to take a stand there one way or the other. Maybe I didn't. I actually got to 3% Eagles, so I'm just a little bit under the field on Eagles in the captain spot.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
You're pretty much with the field, for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. My expectation would be that the Eagles actually get more ownership in the captain spot. Maybe not. We have enough cheaper options that maybe they don't get too much over that. But yeah, I guess I'm close to the field. They look bad on our tools. You could potentially cross them out if you just want to follow what the Sims are telling you. You might just not want to play the Eagles defense in the captain spot.
We're up against it, but Texans defense and kickers, Neil?
Man, it's hard to really want to play either of them all that much. I think I'm under the field on both of them. I'm getting to actually my final run on DraftKings. I did get to 14% Fairbairn. I was getting to like no Fairbairn before I did boost his projection to get a little bit more, got up to 14%. I don't know that I'd be fine getting under that number too. It seems unlikely that he's going to have a ton of fantasy points. Like if they do get behind, they're not going to be kicking field goals too much in the second half. But maybe there is a game script where the Eagles don't score a lot and the Texans just take points where they can get them. And maybe that's the way that they score, is just forcing it in there with Fairbairn. So not the worst play in the world. I'm getting a 7% Texans defense. hard to love them too much in this game, but weird things happen in football. Maybe, it doesn't have to be Jalen Hurts throwing an interception. Maybe the punt returner for the Eagles bobbles the ball and they get an easy touchdown that way. There are a lot of ways for things to go fluky and even a bad defense to work out. So 7% seems fine to me. Not a huge stand I'm taking.
All right, let's build a quick lineup. I'll let you go first. Captain spot, large field tournament.
Let's go Dallas Goedert.
All right, Dallas Goedert. I like it. I will go. I got to go with my boy Miles Sanders.
All right, let me pull up my phone so I can see what we're doing. Okay, after Dallas Goedert and Miles Sanders, we've been talking about these double double running back lineups for the Eagles. Let's do it right now. Let's go. Let's throw Boston Scott in there.
I love that. All right. I'll go Hurts here, and then we'll have two spots to maybe get a little weird. We got 7,100 per player remaining.
7,100 per player. All right, so we need to get a Texans player in there. I'm going to go with my guy, Brevin Jordan.
Okay. You want Brevin? I get it.
And that leaves you all the money in the world, right? You can play whoever you want.
I mean, I'll go a little different here. Damian Pierce. So you've got Goddard. Hold on. God, that's going to leave us a lot, huh?
So
What's that leave
thing
us
that we
with?
could do then is, I thought you were making the lineup. I think it would probably leave like
No, I am. We have 6,500 remaining.
So you could, move Brevin, or you could move Damian Pierce into the captain spot and move
Sanders
Dallas
into the
Goedert,
captain spot.
And you'd be leaving less. And I don't think you necessarily need to. I think this is a slate where you could potentially see a lineup leaving a lot of salary on the table actually win the slate. So I don't mind leaving some salary on the table here. I don't think you get up to Hurts in the captain there anyway. So, I think that that's fine to leave 6,500 with that lineup.
Hey man, I'm all about it. This has been a fun show, Neil.
It has been a fun show. I love these showdown shows.
They are very much an enjoyable time. And I appreciate you guys watching. Did we hit 500? 488. We need 12. Before you go, 12 of you, 1,400. You got to be out there somewhere.
I believe in you. I know they can do it.
Don't ruin the night for Neil and myself. The Phillies are already about to do that for me. So don't worry. But anyway, for real, appreciate you guys. Follow the Showdown Shaman, Neil Orfield, at Player Q DFS. There we go. Over 500.
Oh,
Boom.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Last night I recorded a video about how I will be setting up my fantasy cruncher for the main slate. I think it's coming out tonight. So look for that on the Stokastic channel.
Awesome.
If you're using fantasy cruncher and want to learn how to use it for the main slate, I showed how I set it up.
Awesome. Beautiful. I'm at Loughran_D on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. And hey, flu game from Jordan Klein producing today's show. You're just not feeling well. I get it. It's a horrible feeling. And thanks to you guys more than anything supporting the show. We're about to hit 600 likes at this rate. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, good luck tonight, guys. Let's win some money. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.